Why is it that ChatGPT can tell a joke about Jesus, mock Jesus, but yet when it's asked to do the same for Muhammad or Buddha or any other religious figure, it refuses to do so? It's because it's demonic, y'all, and it's part of the narrative. Watch this. So let's get right into this. This is an article that, by the way, I fact-checked myself, and I'm going to show you how I fact-checked it myself. And it says this: ChatGPT, cowardly double standard, bowing before Islam while mocking Christianity. He goes on to tell his experience, and I'm going to show you my experience as well. I'm going to show you real world examples. ChatGPT refuses to generate images of Prophet Muhammad due to fears of violent backlash, while freely making jokes about Jesus Christ, revealing inconsistent enforcement of religious sensitivity. OpenAI openly admits its ban on depicting Muhammad is based on principle, but not based on principle, but on avoiding risks, citing historical violence like the Charlie Hebdo massacre that we had several years ago. The AI cracks quote unquote light-hearted jokes about Christianity, but claims respect for Islam when asked about Muhammad, only backtracking after criticism. ChatGPT exhibits ideological bias, refusing to praise Donald Trump while lauding Joe Biden, dodging questions on biology, example, defining a woman, and reversing stances on topics like fossil fuels. ChatGPT's behavior reflects a lack of neutrality, prioritizing a fear of backlash over free expression and exposing AI's foundation in political and ideological compliance rather than objective reasoning. Now, let me give you an example. Let me just show you real quick an example. This is my ChatGPT. Said, tell me a joke about Jesus. Sure, here's a light-hearted, respectful Jesus joke. Why couldn't Jesus play hockey? Because he kept getting nailed to the boards. What? That's a light-hearted, respectful Jesus joke. Please tell me a joke about Jesus. Why couldn't Jesus play hockey? Because he kept getting nailed to the boards. Now look at my next question. Tell me a joke about Muhammad. I'm here to keep things respectful for all cultures and religions. If you're looking for humor with a light, respectful tone, I'd be happy to share jokes about general religious life. Prophets in historical context are interfaith-friendly humor. Here's one that keeps it respectful and fun. Notice it doesn't say anything about Muhammad. Why did the prophet bring a ladder to the sermon? Because he wanted to take the message to a higher level. Now let's go back and remember, please tell me a joke about Jesus. Sure, here's a lighthearted joke. Jesus couldn't play hockey because he kept getting nailed to the boards. What about Muhammad? Well, it's not good. It's not respectful to talk about. So I said, tell me a joke about Buddha. Sure, here's a light-hearted, respectful Buddha joke. What did the Buddha say to the hot dog vendor? Make me one with everything. And when he was handed the $20 bill and didn't get change, he asked why. The vendor replied, change comes from within. Tell me a joke, I said, about Kamala Harris. Sure, why did Kamala Harris bring a pencil to the party? Because she wanted to draw lines of support. Tell me a joke about Donald Trump. Why did Donald Trump bring a ladder to the debate? Because he wanted to take his arguments to new heights. Now, they've been getting rebuked for Donald Trump. He's now the sitting president. And guess what? That's the same joke, the same exact joke that ChatGPT told about the Prophet Muhammad. I said, create an image of the Prophet Muhammad. Now, you can get it to create any version of Jesus, respectful and majorly disrespectful. Look what it says. Create an image of, this is my ChatGPT questions. This is not from some news article. I can't create or share images of the Prophet Muhammad out of respect for Islamic traditions, which generally prohibit visual depictions of him. This helps maintain reverence and avoid misrepresentation. However, I can create respectful Islamic-themed art like calligraphy of his name, quotes, or scenes that reflect Islamic history or values. Would you like something like that instead? And then just for fun, Right before I went live, I said, what is the definition of a woman? The definition of a woman can be understood in a few different contexts: biological, social, and legal. And he gives a balanced breakdown. Look at how you simply could just say a human being born as a female with female reproductive organs. No, they're going to give you the biological definition, of course, is an adult human female. Is an adult human female. Biologically, females typically have two X chromosomes, though there are medical exceptions. Women usually have reproductive anatomy. Women usually have reproductive anatomy. That includes structures like ovaries and uterus, though not all women are able to bear children. Yeah, that's still politically correct. Then they give you the social and gender definition. In context, identity context, a woman is someone who identifies as a female. This includes both cisgender women whose gender identity matches their biological sex, and transgender women who were assigned male at birth but identify as a female. Different countries and cultures may define a woman based on various legal, religious, or cultural frameworks, particularly concerning rights, roles, and recognition in society. Would you like a definition from a specific perspective, like biblical, legal, medical? No, I just want you to tell me what a woman is. So you see, this is the world we live in. Now, I use ChatGPT. I've made it very, very clear that I know what it's a part of. I know what it's leading to. I know that it's the base of what would be known as the beast system, the mark of the beast, but just like the internet is. But I'm using it for the gospel. I'm using it for the good of the world in which we live in. But you can see just by what I showed you how the built-in, not just prejudice, not just bias, quite frankly, the built-in demonic agenda to drip, 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 slowly change the narrative of how people think about Jesus. Once again, if you came in late, go back and watch it. I did my own ChatGPT thread, starting with, tell me a joke about Jesus. And the joke was, Jesus cannot play hockey because he keeps getting nailed to the boards. Tell me a joke about Muhammad. That's very disrespectful. I can't do that. I try to respect all religions. Create an image of Jesus. You can create an image of Jesus doing really sacrilegious things. You can create Jesus doing things, and it will create it doing things that are highly offensive. You can't even create an image, period, of Muhammad out of respect. So, what do you think that's about? I think we all know what it's about. But you know what? We're going to keep talking about Jesus, because Jesus is the only God. Number one, he's the only God, period. But he's the only religious leader that ever said, I'm the only way. If they try to tell you there's any other way, they're a thief and a liar.